Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, hello, my name is Skylar. I am a certified dog trainer and pet nutritionist. Today I think I found one of the worst dog foods I've ever seen. To make a long story short, when Dog Dad was on his lunch break from work the other day, he happened to find this monstrosity, took a picture of it, sent it to me, and I immediately texted back, I need that. I have content to make. So here we are taking a look at this super generic convenience store dog food and seeing, what this actually is made of and how it compares to some of our other laughable dog foods. So first let's talk about the packaging of this dog food. It's absolutely totally meant to be just your super overly generic convenience store dog food that you pick up at a gas station on your way on a cross-country trip. That being said, I didn't realize that it would be this laughably generic. This feels like it would be like the butt of a joke in a 90s sitcom, or just kind of like sitting in the background of a comedy where it's like obviously supposed to be so unbelievably prop-like that it just adds to the humor. But no, this is an actual food that's being sold for pets. All we have on the bag here is dog food in nice big letters and a nice, looks like pen drawing of a dog. On the sides here we know that it's 10 pounds, and again, big red dog food. There is not a brand on this by any means. I'm not gonna go too deep into whoever makes this food in today's video because quite frankly, I don't really care. It's not something that I plan on feeding my dogs. It's not something I plan on recommending to people. So instead, we're just gonna use this as a fun opportunity to poke some fun and take a look at, ingredients, learning what those ingredients truly are, because that can benefit you as you're shopping at your local pet store. We can also talk about some of the other things that we see on the bag. When I first saw this food, I was interested to see if it would say anything about AAFCO. AAFCO, I can do a whole video kind of separate that goes into who AAFCO even is, but essentially the FDA doesn't have very much say in pet food for the most part. They really just are concerned about salmonella and other pathogens, but mostly they just kind of let AAFCO handle it. AAFCO is the Association of American Feed Control Officials. Basically, they create different rules for pet food brands that then states adopt, and the state regulators will look at AAFCO to help keep some sort of balance in the pet food industry. AAFCO makes some guidelines based on what is considered complete and balanced, as well as what you can name the pet food, what you can name the flavor or the recipe of the food on the bag, whether it be, chicken and rice recipe, or with chicken and rice, or chicken and rice flavor. All of those things AAFCO has rules for. They also have rules for what you can call the ingredients to a certain extent. So for example, if it's considered meat, it has to follow these guidelines. If it's considered meat byproducts, it has to follow these guidelines. In order to be considered meat byproduct meal, it has to follow these guidelines. So AAFCO creates all these guidelines. State officials are the ones who actually uphold those regulations, and the FDA is more or less completely hands-off. My surprise when I turn over this bag and, probably a good 1/10 of the bag is taken up with an AAFCO complete and balanced statement. So this food, believe it or not, meets the bare minimum nutritional requirements required for dog food. That being said, they still have a pretty big statement that says this food cannot be fed to puppies or nursing dogs or pregnant dogs or weak dogs or hardworking dogs, as they phrase it, because it will not meet their needs. So this is definitely like bare minimum dog food. This will keep your dog living, not necessarily thriving. The next thing I wanted to take a look at was the actual ingredients of this food. Whenever we talk about ingredients on this channel, the main thing I want you to take away is just learning how sneaky some of these things can be phrased. That way you have that education so that when you look at the back of your dog's food, you're able to decide for yourself whether that's something you're comfortable feeding your dog or not. I'm not here to make that decision for you. I just want to give you the tools of the trade. So this gives us a really good opportunity to talk about some ingredients that I would maybe choose to avoid for my dogs. So let's get on into that. What I also want to say about this food is I'm not able to go off of the AAFCO labeling rules. Like I said, whether it be considered a recipe or with whatever or flavored with whatever, all of those things can give me a good idea of how much of each ingredient is actually in this food, at least in the minimum. I got none of that here. It does not say chicken anything, it does not say beef anything, it does not say anything else on this bag but dog food. So I'm not able to sit here and tell you how much minimum meat is required to be in this food, because technically there's no minimum requirement for meat. So we'll get into that as well. The very first ingredient is ground yellow corn. This is specific, which is something that I always love. The more specific that they can be on the ingredient panel, the better, because I know for a fact that this is only yellow corn, which isn't that great of an ingredient anyway. Corn itself is a pretty common food allergen. It also lacks a lot of nutrients. Corn, even 40, 50 plus years ago, had significantly more nutrients than corn today does, especially when it's, mass produced for things like low quality dog food. Corn also has a pretty high sugar content, especially compared to a lot of the other ingredients that can take its place in dog food. And as I'm sure you can guess, having a surplus of sugar in your pet's food can lead to a lot of health and behavior problems down the line. The second ingredient is wheat mill run. Now this is not wheat, it is the run off of the mill. It's being very specific for us, which is again, great. Love specificity. So if you imagine like a big conveyor belt that is taking the wheat to its end destination, everything that's not actually wheat and that is left on the conveyor belt or even falls onto the floor can be considered wheat mill run. So it's not the grain itself, it's just kind of everything left over. Next we have meat and bone meal. According to AAFCO definitions, and quite frankly it makes it pretty clear in the actual title itself, this consists of both meat and bone. AAFCO also specifies that the whole carcass can be used in this case. However, you can't add additional hair, hoofs, heads, etc. I have 3 big issues with meat and bone meal, and I guess the first is the fact that we have no idea what kind of meat it is. Unlike with meat byproducts, where we at least know that it has to come from cattle or pork or lamb or goat, in this case, since it is a meal, it can be any kind of meat. It doesn't have to be specified. Since it is a meat meal, it can be any kind of animal. So if we read the actual AAFCO definitions, rendered products of animal tissues including bone does not include added blood, hair, hoof, horn, hide trimmings, manure, stomach, or rumen, and it can include the whole carcass of the animal. My second bone to pick is that it doesn't give us any quantities. It also can vary. So for example, it might be 40% bone during one batch, it might be 60% bone the next batch. That variance is absolutely allowed, to the point where it could potentially be 90% bone and 10% or less of actual meat. So this is a way of getting some protein in there, but it doesn't give us any other information besides that. My third issue is that AAFCO does not specify that meat and bone meal must come from a slaughtered source. There are AAFCO definitions where they specifically say must come from a slaughtered source, comes from a slaughtered source. Slaughtered source means that it's purposely killed in healthy condition for the purpose of being eaten, turned into food, etc. This is where things can get kind of dicey when we're talking about the existence or not of 4D meats, which is down, dying, dead, or diseased. Those types of meats are definitely not allowed by the FDA to be used in human food, but the FDA doesn't make those rules for pet food. Next we have soybean meal. Now soy is commonly used for people as a plant-based protein substitute. A lot of your, vegan chicken nuggets are gonna be soy-based, which can help make up for the fact that this dog food has a minimum protein requirement that it has to meet, and potentially no meat in the food. So that soybean meal is there to provide protein source. Ultimately, soy is a very cheap filler that can be used to replace meat, which is actually pretty important for a biologically appropriate diet. And then the last ingredient that we're going to talk about today, because everything after salt is less than 2% of the recipe, is going to be animal fat. Animal fat is super non-specific. It could be anything and it could be everything. We really do not know. We've looked over the aesthetic of the food. We've looked over the ingredients of the food. We've at least confirmed that it's complete and balanced by AAFCO standards. How much of this food would you have to feed your dog in order to make sure that they got as many nutrients as they need? Well, obviously we just looked over the ingredient panel. This food's nothing but fillers. When it comes to using a lot of fillers in your food, you're going to make the food less nutritionally dense. This means that you're going to have to actually feed more of the food to make sure that your pet's getting all of the nutrients they need. So let's take a look at what my dogs would have to eat for a day in order to get all of the nutrients they need. So on here it has, for large breed dogs, that's 45 to 80 pounds, which both of my dogs fit into. I would need to feed 6 to 10 cups of dog food per day per dog, just to make sure they're getting all of the nutrients that they need. For reference, that's 3 to 5 pounds of dog food, just to make sure that they're eating enough. That is absolutely insane. I don't think I've seen it go up that high on any other dog food that I've really looked at the feeding guidelines for. For a lot of the higher quality dog foods that I typically recommend, for the kibble, my dogs are eating anywhere between 2, maybe 3 cups per day is what's recommended in order for them to get all of the nutrients they need. And that is significantly less than the 6 to 10 cups that this would require. This is kind of a pet peeve of mine because there's a lot of people that believe that they can't feed higher quality foods because it is more expensive on the price ticket. But when you actually look at how much you're feeding of your old food versus the newer high quality food, you're probably going to be paying close to the same amount for the bags. So if you'd like a video of me kind of going deeper into that, definitely let me know. The probably one and only thing that redeems this dog food is their feeding directions. I don't think I've seen this on any other dog food. Quite frankly, I haven't really looked. Normally for feeding directions, I see things like, if feeding just dry, feed this much. If adding canned food, here's some estimated formula of how much dry food you should feed to wet. That's totally cool. This is something very similar where it has, served dry, and then it gives directions. And then it has served moistened. So it's actually encouraging people, or at least giving the option that you can feed your dog added moisture to your dry food, which is something I'm here for. So this bag recommends to add variety to your dog's menu. You may add 1 part liquid, and then they recommend milk or broth or gravy for every 6 parts of dog food. That's its redeeming quality. The fact that it insinuates that you can, in fact, add moisture to your pet's food, which is very, very important. That is probably one of the worst dog foods that I've ever seen. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I enjoyed filming it just because this is very amusing to me. Even without me filming videos for YouTube, would have liked to have seen this brought home just so I can check it out, because it's just, like I said in the beginning, the packaging itself is comical. So I'm glad that I was able to kind of turning it into a teaching opportunity for you guys. I hope you guys learned something, whether it be about, AAFCO rules or more actual what ingredients mean. That way you can compare it to your own foods. Or maybe you just got to laugh along with me about how truly comical this bag of food is. I'm having trouble coming to terms with the fact that this is not satire. This could be art. Satirical art. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and honestly, comment down below what you call your convenience stores. The store in particular that we got this one from, we call the Party Store, because a friend of ours is from Minnesota, and I guess that's what they call their convenience stores there, but I call every other convenience store a convenience store, or by its name. So, I'm interested to know where you live and what you call your convenience stores, just because, again, we got this from the Party Store, and I thought that was really funny the first time I heard it. If you're interested in learning more, be sure to subscribe to my channel. We do a lot of pet food related content here, and this is not going to be the first bag of food that we analyze, and it's not going to be the last. You can also follow me on Instagram at tattoo.dogtrainer for all of my personal and YouTube-y stuff, or at Top Dog Behavior for my business side of things, a lot of infographics, a lot of information, fact-based, shareable things. Follow me wherever, don't follow me at all. I'd love to have you though. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!